Welcome back. So after I was struck by that energy on the night of the meteor passing over Barton, I I I started really being aware of psychic abilities, and I was, it's not anything I can like. I saw on YouTube, Tyler Henry has, like he's like a Hollywood medium, and I was, some of the things he was describing, like on the Marley Matlin, he would see a sign and it would tip him off. Now these are similar things to what I experience. It's the timing of just seeing certain, maybe a certain television show or a certain movie or something, or inspired to go on a drive, or whatever it is, crossing paths with a bear, or whatever it is. If I think about that in the timing of life of everything, it totally changes everything. And this is kind of what this Tyler Henry was doing, but he was channeling this into the spirit world because it's wild. Like, because I'm posting these on YouTube, I get prompted, on the For You when I first log onto YouTube, and I saw the couple medium. I saw that there were a couple psychics on on the YouTube, and on that day, I had a psychic experience with the passing of my friend Mike's wife, Christy. She just died suddenly, and he was out of town and returned and found her passed on. And but it was funny, like, not funny, but when I mentioned Christy, well, he brought up Christy in a text message, and it was funny. It's something I get a feeling. It's very strange, and when I was able. Testing 1, 2, 3. I forgot to have my headphones on. Luckily, this was recording okay. I guess I'll carry on. You can see me without the headphones on a little bit. I was kind of excited to talk this morning because I'd actually had a nice discussion downstairs with Lisa, and and to describe this feeling I had with Christy and her presence, and wanting to like tell her husband that she just loved him, and then I was hearing this music, and I sensed the like kind of joy going through the music, and this like sort of dance sort of going on around me. And so it was really fun for me to have that experience, but to describe it to somebody is very, very difficult. And so I think the reason why I got struck by this meteor energy and sent on this loop out into this other dimension, and then seeing the finite universe. It's the universe is only going. It's not as big. I remember watching Monty Python. They said the universe is big, really big, and then they start describing the mind-boggling numbers of the size of the universe. But it's actually not that big, because in the dimension, you must picture the entirety of the universe in all of its time. So from when what they say is the Big Bang, so the beginning of the energizing of the universe, because the description of the Big Bang I actually want to talk about it. Maybe this episode, maybe a future episode, but I think probably a future episode. But the universe got energized, and it like banging a pool cue, into a rack, got shot out in, and it exists like all as Einstein's math and everything works out as a universe of mass. So picture around this mass, and so the energy creates the light and all of the things of the mass, and we see it, and it has traveled, and it gets pulled back around to the center, bang, it goes out the other side, and it forms this infinite loop, this loop of this shape like the symbol of infinity, and it bangs back and forth, and it's all designed. It's all by design, and this universe in all of its time is floating, like, picture it like buoyant in a dimension around it. And the dimension around it is contains the energy of all the things that have ever lived and existed. and and this is a dimension without mass. And this is where all the physicists and the astrophysicists and all these things just, their brain seems to stop at the point where they're looking at the mass. I know they're looking at other universes and multiverses and things like this. But I'll explain why our universe is unique, why there aren't replicas of ours, and this will be explained in a future episode. But for now, picture our universe. My cat came in. She's wondering what I'm talking to. So picture our universe floating in this ocean, and around it is a dimension. And in this dimension exists energy, and that equals time and knowledge, which equals C, the big C, which is the creative energy, or that creation, or if you want to describe it in terms of God, equals God. God equals, or C, the creationer, the creation, the creative energy. C equals time and knowledge, and the time and knowledge is what radiates out from the universe, from existence. Everything is recorded. And I don't know exactly about, I've heard people describe a sort of Akashic record, where all knowledge of everything that ever existed is in this space. But I want to describe it as a dimension which is around us, and it records this radiance of life, this radiance of existence out by design of the universe it created. And that is all of the things we think and feel in our lifetime. And so our lifetimes are predetermined. And the reason why is I started, it's what was wild. I was sharing on another thing. I started watching the old show, the old version of Quantum Leap. And it was funny. I was talking about signs and symbols, how I was just like, I wanted to watch it. It's so funny. I remember my friend Steve Erlenborn, who was the phone call that started a lot of this stuff with me, with psychic stuff. He used to watch it. I remember when it came out, but I didn't watch. I wasn't that interested. And so, but episode 1, this quantum leaper, his soul basically jumps into other bodies, and he's supposed to fix things, okay? And this has kind of meaning for me, just if you think about, like, if my life is needed fixing, this soul of Natalie Wood or Steve McQueen, or, believe it or not, in the end of January of this year, the soul of the deceased guitarist from the band Chicago, Terry Kath, believe it or not, reached out to me and completely blew my mind. And he also had died a accidental death, like Natalie Wood. And so I'll explain Terry Kath coming up, but without getting too distracted, around us is this dimension, like a giant ocean, and the universe is floating in there, but the universe is porous, so this dimension goes all through us. It's all through us and around us, and its very purpose is to record how we feel about the lives we live. But if our lives were just up to chance, okay, then, all these time travel shows, they're always, physically changing the world of mass. The world of mass isn't as important as the world of knowledge and time outside. So without mass, you can move through this dimension, and let's say the show Quantum Leap, let's say somebody wanted to live my life again, let's say, or I'm living Thomas's life, okay, Thomas Foos's life, and someone has lived it before me, and how they felt about this particular path, or how they went about making the choices that they were going to make anyway, but how they thought about it. And this is what my very soul is. And in our passing, we just bring this knowledge, and this lives on. And because this, outer ocean, so to speak, houses this record of all that we have thought, felt, and everything in our lives, and this is what our soul is. And so around us in this ocean, we have like the universe is like this speck of plankton or whatever, but the ocean water, the ocean itself is made up of souls, of all of the knowledge created by the lives and the interaction of lives and things like that. So you have energy, okay, and then you have time and knowledge, and that equals C. And then you say, well, how did the universe come about? Where did it all come from? And so, what I want to describe to you is that in this creation of mass, how it was designed, by the creative energy, by the creator, is kind of like a darkroom effect. So you have zero energy. Okay, so there's no gravity at all. There's nothing. Absolute zero. And what they did is it took a positive and a negative of matter and antimatter, like in a darkroom, and they balanced them together in this perfect symmetry to make the design of how all these things are going to play out once it is energized. And so what they have floating in their sea, in their ocean, is this picture kind of like two magnets, or almost like a Polaroid. About on the first Polaroids where you had to peel off the negative part, the chemical part or whatever. So you had an image on both parts or whatever, one positive, one negative, and so, or the yin and the yang, all right? And we see this also in biology, in the, as the cell divides, this sort of, you see the things line up exactly, and then boo, they pull apart, and you have acellular, is it acellular or cellular reproduction? Sorry, and that's not where I want to go with all this, because I don't want to pretend that I'm like a expert in biology or whatever. I mean, I have basic high school biology or whatever, and college class, and I was talking about the universe and the Big Bang and the dark room and all these things before, and I don't know whether I got sidetracked or I'm going to split it. But what happened was that the universe was suspended, a balance of matter and antimatter, all like a particle in an ocean, and then it was energized, and it peeled apart like a cell dividing, so to speak, and the universe as we know it was given light, and it was given an instant gravity. Okay, and so this energy that was given to it was so powerful and focused. If you picture the universe balanced kind of like a pool rack, with the other universe holding it in place. And then our universes, they get pierced with energy. And so what happened was that pure energy went right through, and it caused a perfectly engineered chain reaction as the various energies splintered off into this designed pool rack, so to speak. And the earth was like a seed inside all of this mass. And the iron core of the earth was on the outside of the earth. And the ocean, the material of life, and you can see the sort of jawbreaker sort of layers, was encapsulated within. And what happened was the energy at that chain reaction was so intense, it liquefied the iron on the outside, and gravity itself and the effects of this made that iron then center, but it kept all of that material for life within that gravity, within the weight of that iron. And the water and the ocean swapped places back. That life material, that water, swapped places with the iron shell. And if you look at a lot of plate tectonics, if you look at it in a different way, like a muffin kind of opening up like this, like an opening you can see. And so what happened was that the first energy went through, and then as soon as it hit the universe, this incredible instant gravity, the gravity of all the universe, just collapses it in like Big Bang, you know. So, but that energy shot all the way through the universe, and then all of a sudden instant gravity caused it to loop back and bang, hit the center, and then you see the Big Bang on the other side as that energy loops through, all by design. And so you can see how today's science can be right, but also really wrong, because the universe itself is all of time in this other dimension. It's not just moving forward, expanding, or whatever. You know, that is the universe of mass floating in the ocean of energy, time, knowledge, and creation, or God. This is the God. But this holds, it's through us, and it holds the energy of those souls that have passed. The universe itself and the earth itself, you know, it's not, it radiates this energy of our souls outward. And so what we're living for is not, you know, all of the things we can possess. I mean, if you look at me, I don't look with skin and all these things. You know, caterpillar will transform into a butterfly, and this is what happens when we shed our mass, you know, when we pass on. And so there's the spirit world around me that I had no awareness of, or probably I had a prejudice against believing for most of my life. And by design, I was shown a way, I guess, to get over my disbelief through all of these events and through all these verifications. And I can talk about all sorts of different aspects of my life, but the channeling of souls and everything. So I mean, it was funny. I mentioned Terry Kath, and it's very interesting when we go to verify, you know, what we hear. It's funny in the way I go about verifying is names match up, because names you would like I keep saying, you'd think would be random. You could literally, you think you could name your child anything you wanted, but it's it seems to be by some design that we name so that we have this way to verify, I suppose, at least in the way I see it. And so with Terry Kath, it was very interesting. I didn't even remember his name. It's funny. I always loved the song 25 or 6 to 4, which when I was a kid I thought it was in the afternoon. But on January 31st of this year, I started hearing that song in my head. It's by the band Chicago. And Chicago, of course, after leaving North Carolina and moving to Chicago, the band by the name Chicago was so awesome. They always had double albums. I was talking about twin verifications. And they had the best guitarist who shocked us all when I was in, I believe it was 8th grade. It just went ripping through the school that the lead guitarist for the band Chicago had died by accidentally shooting himself in the head. And we were like, wow, how could this happen? And there were all these theories, you know, about, you know, circulating around, rumors to explain it all. But it was a big shock. But the funny thing about the name Terry Kath is, because he had died so tragically and by his own hand, it was a name I had very much blocked out. I had just forgotten it. And so on January 31st of this last year, I started hearing do-do-do-do-do, 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 ba-na-na-na-na-na-na. And then I go, oh, that song has the sweetest guitar jam in it. So I get up. I'm usually way up before 25 or 6 to 4 in the morning, having been a former swimmer and then over the years, pulling all-nighters and stuff. I actually like to go to bed right after dark. I go to bed quite early and get up, and sometimes, middle of 12:30 at night, 1 a.m., something like that. So it's funny, I was up after hearing that song and just couldn't get out of my head, just like I kept telling you, I keep hearing things over and over. And I go to, first thing I do is I go on YouTube, actually, and I want to hear it. I want to hear that song. And so I get up a cue for the song, and then I go, oh, what's the guitarist? And then I scroll down, and of course people are mentioning Terry Kath, and I was like, oh yeah, Terry Kath. Oh my God, yes. He shot himself in the head. And then I actually sent an email to my friends because they showed their Chicago's concert from Tanglewoods in 1970, where Terry Kath, just like, long hair, he was like grunge before grunge. And he gets up, and they were a protest band, so, that also tampered the wide circulation. They were against the war and all these things, big time, with, it's it better end soon, my friend, and all these lyrics. But he gets up there and just jams the most incredible 25 or 6 to 4 and Make Me Smile, that amazing song. And I sent an email to my friends, can you find a better jam than this on the internet? And then I noticed off to the side, there was a thing that his daughter, Michelle Kath, had done a documentary, and I watched Terry Kath's documentary, and it was like, oh my God, this is just like, totally blows my mind. And at that time, I hear this Steve McQueen presence come back in, and he says, he goes, this was the first woman I got pregnant. I also had an abortion like you. I was really scared. I was only 15, and so we had to have this abortion because I was too young, and it was like during the war. And I heard this that voice like clearly, and I started looking up, and so Terry Kath was born in Chicago. Steve McQueen's firstborn was named Terry. And then it was really wild because I had this like maternal connection with my mom, with all these names involved with Terry Kath. Like, his father was Raymond Elmer, I believe, and my grandfather's name was Elmer Gustav Backlund. And it's funny, Gustav was a king, and Raymond, the name Raymond in America at least is the king of soul, Ray Charles, and Terry Kath fashioned his voice after Ray Charles, and his father is named Raymond, and his middle name was Elmer. And my grandfather, who I love very much, who lived with us in Glen Ellen in Chicago for his last years. I had some technical difficulties with the camera and so forth, but I was talking about Terry Kath, and I thought I'd go get my book and read. It's quite amazing. Ray Charles is not just like a coincidental thing, because Ray Charles was called also he was also known as the King of Soul and the King of Cool, and Ray is the name of Terry Kath's father. And like I said, Steve McQueen came to me and said, no, his soul is like yours. You're like a half brother. But Steve McQueen was very, very young. And Terry Kath's talent, he was self-taught guitar. And he made, this Jimi Hendrix, just absolutely awestruck, called him the greatest guitar player in the universe and things. When you watch him play live, it's just a new level of guitar, because he could switch between rhythm and lead so fast and easy. It was amazing. He was just truly of his own. But my grandfather also has the name Gustav after a king. So they both had the nickname King. But here's the thing about Ray Charles being a king. Ray Charles' birthday, turns out, is June 10th. And June 10th is the birthday of my middle boy, Alex. And Alex is born a Gemini, like Ray Charles, which is also a twin, the twin. And I also say Thomas and twins and everything. And my wife Christine wanted to give him the middle name of me, because we're both middle children. So he's Alexander Thomas Foos. And so there's a twinness to Alex. And then his birthday is the same as Ray Charles, which figures into this story because literally Terry Kath came to me like some sort of brother, and this totally changed my perspective, because somehow at first it was like this breakthrough from this motherly love of Natalie Wood, and then this wild surprise that Steve McQueen came out of nowhere because he wasn't even in a movie, in the documentary on Natalie Wood, and wasn't even in my thought. I wasn't a fan and all these things. And then it checks out how he gets entwined with this. So, I've watched some mediums. I don't know how they work, or I want to just make it clear. I don't think I could go up and feel some objects of somebody and make contact with them, because my psychic experience is just people talking, coming to me, and I get a sensation. And there are people that within my circle of friendship that I feel. And then the circle of the weird, wild world of Natalie Wood and Steve McQueen. And so, this is how it extends to me. And then a few others, after. So when I heard that song, I got to finish the Terry Kath story, because I don't think I even mentioned that. So I looked and Wikipedia Terry Kath, and I realized his birthday was January 31st. His birthday, and he killed himself just a week earlier. So this was really when I heard that song so much, and then it reminded me, oh yes, on my of Natalie Wood on Natalie Wood's birthday, and so, but I heard his guitar literally like through a psychic experience. And, Terry Kath's mother is Evelyn Madeline Haugen. And my mother's name is Evelyn Olive Backlund. And here's an interesting thing is Malign is a Greek name, and it means brave and gentle. And Malign bore the son of Hercules. And so that has kind of some connection to this whole story, because Terry Kath was really a god of guitar players. He's, by anyone's standard, one of the great of all time. And my mother's middle name, Olive, has also, it connects to the Greek. And Haugen is Norse for hill or mound. And Backlund, my mother's name, means a lund. It means a hill, a grove hill is what Backlund means, grove hill. So Haugen is Norse for mound or hill, and Backlund is short for Grove Hill. And here's the interesting thing is Steve McQueen was born in Beech Grove, Indiana. And Beech in Beech Grove is spelled B-E-E-C-H. And my father flew just a number of Beechcraft aircrafts. He had a Bonanza, an A-36, a Baron, and he may have had more. He traded, he liked to fly different planes. And then the Norse figures into all of this even more on the mother's side, with just a whole story about Barton and the Norse and Asa Kimball and all these things that I'll get to in another thing. But so I had this experience where Benny Goodman, where Terry Kath like reached out to me, and when I watched his daughter's documentary, I had all of these amazing, like, similar experiences. It was funny. My father really wanted me to play the clarinet like Benny Goodman, and apparently Terry Kath's father did not want him to play the guitar. But in our world of opposites, Terry Kath just picked up the guitar and taught himself to become an amazing guitar player. And I just didn't practice my clarinet and fouled the sound of the band, and and I quit that pretty quickly. And so, these things are maybe common to a lot of people, but the names start to check out when also in the story of Terry Kath's life, he bought a Porsche 911 and he crashed it, he rolled it, and it almost killed him. And here's an amazing thing. Steve McQueen also had a 911 and crashed it in France. And my father, Peter, had a 911 SC beige car. On a rainy night, a guy came out in traffic. The Porsche was so low, the guy didn't see him, and T-boned the thing, crashed his 911. And of course, my neighbor, Michael Rahal, who is also like, you'll see how closely tied he is with my education with a Porsche. He wanted me to go to Denison so badly, he said, if you go to Denison, I will buy you a Porsche, to my parents at dinner at the Glen Oak Country Club. And it was a jaw dropper, And I'll tell the story about how he actually, when I got into Denison, he said, all right, let's go shopping. And I was just like, I couldn't, I was happy to get into Denison, I suppose, at this point, and I knew I was a pretty bad student, so driving around a Porsche was probably not going to suit me right, but he was right. Had I driven around a Porsche, I would have done it, probably, stood out so much, it would have changed my life for the better. So I should have, taken the advice from Mr. Rahal. But actually, I said to him, Mr. Rahal, you don't have to buy me a Porsche. I thought he was bluffing because of the way he had said it at the time. But a funny story about buying people a Porsche, he blurted that out, okay? And he had told me since age 10, Tommy, you're going to go to Denison. You're going to go to Denison University. You're going to go to Denison. And he just wanted me to go to Denison so bad. I felt like I would just like destroy him if I didn't go. It was funny. So I went and looked at it, and it was the only application I really had that was viable to send in. And so I ended up loving Denison, especially because, I think I would have been awkward at any college or university, but at Denison, as I look back on my experience there, it was a real privilege to be there, and it's a really incredible school. And I've looked at a lot of colleges in this world, and Denison's one of the prettiest colleges I've ever seen. So, in Ohio, it was a great place to study, with beautiful rolling hills and mists and fogs that would sit in them. And so, but Denison also has a lot of spiritual stuff, and you'll find out. But it was funny. I went to visit Ian, Bobby's younger brother, who was really my good friend. We used to shoot pool in his basement and watch the playoffs and all these things, and still is to this day my oldest friend. But, I went to a race at Pocono with Graham Rahal, really dangerous track. Graham Rahal has raced through some of the most dangerous years of IndyCar, really, when you look at some of the fatalities and things. So, I mean, these guys are really skilled, and I have a ton of respect for Graham. But he was also just like another guy, just the nicest guy you could ever meet. And so I went to a race at Pocono, and I said, he asked me about myself. I said, well, first thing is when your dad was racing back and forth in the Atlantic and stuff, my father could fly, so we flew your granddad out to the races and everything, and I went to a lot of your dad's races, and I was just an enormous fan of everything. And then I also said, your dad and I were such good friends, he offered to buy me a Porsche. And Graham said, oh, really? You got in on that? Boy, all the grandkids apparently were offered a Porsche, and they all turned it down. They said, oh, forget it. And so it was a funny thing how that carried on. I guess he really wanted to have a Rahal drive a Porsche right into Denison, because it would have really made waves. Probably should have taken him up on it. But this is my strange universe of privilege and whatnot that I live in from just chance, you would think. But it's all by some design, because you'll see in this that I was somehow meant to have some kind of way to verify that I'm hearing voices, because I have no connection to Steve McQueen or Natalie Wood or Terry Kath or anything. But Terry Kath, the story can go on and on. So Terry Kath went out from Chicago, a place I'm very familiar with. Our geography crossed paths a lot. And he went out and did some of his best work in a place called Caribou Ranch. And I looked it up, and it's in a place called Nederland, Colorado. Now, I keep talking about underwater, okay? Nederland is it's a place in Colorado, of which is like, it's I think its altitude is about a mile up, Nederland, Colorado. But it's named after the Netherlands for some reason. It doesn't make any sense, but in this story it's incredible because the Netherlands, being an underwater country, keeps popping up, and even back in the racing, because Arie Luyendyk Spin, the first IndyCar driver from the Netherlands, played an amazing change in fate for, the whole fate of the Rahal family. And so I saw that, he had flipped it, he had crashed his car, and he was in Nederland, Colorado. But more than that is, I the ski passes here got so expensive, and one year the plane tickets were really cheap to go to Colorado, and so it was the first year I separated from my wife, and so I bought advanced tickets, 5 advanced tickets to go out to Colorado, and then bought a ski pass for Keystone, which was, I believe, $299 at the time. I missed the early $289 preseason, but all that added up equaled the same as a ski pass at Stowe, because they were very expensive back then. It was actually less, and so I had friends in my next door neighbor lived in Boulder, and then my Brian Ankenbrand, who figures into the whole Catalina story again, lived in a suburb. Skipping my name, right out a little past Boulder, and then if you look at where Denver. Oh, and then I had a friend of mine, Edie, who lived in Aurora. So if you look at Denver and Aurora area, and then you go up to Keystone and A Base and ski, and then you go to Boulder, and then back to Denver, which is what I kept doing. This goes right around Caribou Ranch and Nederland, Colorado. And so that kind of blew my mind. And then, of course, he passed away out in California. And this again, it crosses paths in another story that I'll tell later on, another psychic experience I had with, oddly enough, the actor Gary Shandling. But I'll mention that later, because but I will mention this strange thing. I get this experience, just to look up Gary Shandling. And you think, why would you look up Gary Shandling and all this? But when I look up who Gary Shandling, he was born in Chicago, and he died out in Santa Monica, I think, where Natalie Wood's sister was born or something. And right near Catalina, where you can launch actually to Catalina. So Gary Shandling he was born on the day Natalie Wood died, November 29th, and in Chicago, and then he died in California on my birthday, March 24th, when I looked it up. So I was really in shock. And this I'm going to talk about again when I talk about Gary Shandling actually played Fox Mulder on the X-Files. And there's this weird thing about the timing of when I watch certain X-Files up till I stopped at end of season 8. Fox had been abducted or whatever, and it was time to move on. But there was a weird timing, because I had this paranormal experience, and I was like, you have to somehow escape. I'm writing a book all the time, and with an iPad you can watch a movie anywhere. So I'd watch the X-Files, and the timing of it I'll get into, but there's an episode in the X-Files where Fox, it was right before July 4th of this year, and Fox Mulder they get put on forced leave or whatever, so paid vacation because of they had been falsely accused in some case, or they had mucked up some case or something like that. And they decide to go, in this episode, the Chief Skinner's friend had came out to witness them on the job, and actually was writing about them when they screwed up the case. But he got this idea, oh no, I got all I need to do to go write up this movie. And playing Fox in the movie, what happens is Fox, they get forced on vacation. Scully says, what are you going to do? I says, oh, they're making a movie about us. Let's go out and watch it. So they go out to Hollywood and they see the premiere of the movie, and who is playing Fox Mulder but Gary Shandling? And that's why I ended up looking up Gary Shandling, because for one thing, Fox, David Duchovny and Gary Shandling are not all that similar in appearance. Okay, but Gary Shandling also played Larry Sanders on HBO's Larry Sanders Show, which is the perfect environment of opposites of the world I want to live in, where people are always lying about each other and backstabbing and doing anything they can. But anyway, the Porsche is very interesting. I mentioned again, and one of the interesting things about Porsche and my father, and even Graham Rahal knowing about grandkids being offered Porsches to go to Denison and things like this, because grandfather Michael wanted them to go to Denison just like he wanted me to go to Denison. And my father, he was born in Stuttgart, Germany, which is where the Porsche factory is. And I actually, when I was a kid, he took us over to Germany to reconnect with the family, and he took us to Stuttgart, and we went to see the Porsche factory and museum they had there, and it was really spectacular, and I'll never forget it. It was really incredible, and so I have this real connection with Porsche. And here's the interesting thing: on the Porsche emblem is a horse, and Steve McQueen was born in 1930, and that's the year of the horse. And so, I see Terry Kath, and what is like reaching out to me is like, if Steve McQueen was a guitarist, his energy would have created this Terry Kath like person, but I'm his brother, you see, on this. So, why me? I don't know. I guess if Steve McQueen wanted to never be in the limelight, I suppose. If he, like, I have stage fright, and I even have trouble doing these videos just because, it's not, if I had my choice, this wouldn't be my path, but it is. So these stories are, I tell these stories and these so-called, coincidences or whatever, as to try to verify something that's very real to me. I'm getting this information from this outside dimension, which I experienced traveling through on March 7th when the energy of the meteor went over my house. And so I guess that's kind of a wrap for this lesson. I think it is kind of, I mean, I feel like I just want to say what came to me, because I can speak on and on about it, but philosophically it gets very, very deep and religious in a way.